Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. This is episode number 36. Those of you that are avid followers of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast will notice that we have taken a break for the last month. We produced 35 episodes and we decided just to take a break to kind of restock and start to build up a new list of guests that are coming up over the summer. And I'm really excited, as I am on every episode, about our guests, because I always try and look for guests who've got an interesting story to tell. And I'm really pleased to welcome our guest this week, Apurva Dasi.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, really grateful to be here. It's really lovely to be here. I'm quite excited. I love associating with devotees, so I'm a happy chappy.
It's great to see you. So I think we first met. That's a weird expression. We first met. When did we say we met?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
About 2.5 years ago in Brighton. I was invited down to speak at the Namahata. I was compiling research for a book at the time. The book's now out. I was compiling research for a book at the time on the history and the diversity of the Hare Krishna movement in the UK. And because the Brighton Sangha, copy of my book. Because the Brighton Sangha, thank you for sharing that. Because the Brighton Sangha is quite colourful and diverse, I was invited down to speak on the topic. So we met then. That was pre-pandemic. That was January 2020.
I do believe it was. Yeah, it was at Hare Krishna Fridays, wasn't it? Sort of the weekly gathering pre-pandemic. Yep, that's right. Yeah, no, I remember
that. And we've also seen each other recently at a kirtan event in Kent. You and I both love kirtan, we love association, and we love to get around a bit, meeting devotees and chanting together. So I'm going to shut up because I do talk quite a bit. So Apurva, tell us a bit about you, where you're from and your background.
Yeah, sure. No worries. So I'm actually I was born in South Africa, and I lived in South Africa for 12 years. And then my mum sort of decided when I was young that she was going to come overseas and start working to sort of build up funds and eventually move us over here because things were looking quite volatile in South Africa. So I got in the car one day coming home from school, and my mum said, I was 12 years old, and she said, we're moving to France. And I just remember saying, cool, because I had absolutely no idea what that meant. I literally had no idea what that meant. But what it did mean was going to French school, complete change of culture. It was really special, really beautiful, and an experience that I cherish. And I think sort of the contrast of moving to England after living in France was quite stark for me. So we lived in France for 2 years. My mum had sort of a work contact there that we could stay with. She's a very hardworking, lovely lady that's very favorable to my devotional life. Fortunately, I know that's not the case for many devotees. So we've had sort of a very close-knit relationship. And we moved over to England when I was about 15 from France. And then I went to college. I did my A-levels. I did a personal training and sports massage course because I was so convinced I was going to fail my A-levels because I got into, all sorts of fun things you do when you sort of turn 17, 18. I got into like the Bournemouth, sort of the underbelly drum and bass scene. You wouldn't believe it now, me with my little spectacles. But yep, I used to, love the grimy environment. And after that, I really didn't know what to do. When I sort of finished my education, I had so much experience in hospitality, and it just, hospitality is quite soulless work. It's not something that it's not sort of good for me, even though I am good at it. So I decided to go back to South Africa on sort of like an extended gap year. And during that time, I did a lot of personal development courses. I then also had a position managing a vegan restaurant on sort of like a dream environment. It was such a dream environment. It was like 427 hectares of land. There were 7 hectares of organic garden, but it was very challenging, the actual working environment. It was working for a family. And sort of that came with all the complications that family and business come with. And there wasn't sort of a huge budget for the place. So it didn't last too long. I sort of tried going off on my own the job prospects were not brilliant. And I think this is sort of, to really put it like, to really pinpoint it, because I think about this a lot. At this sort of experimental, like spiritual awakening phase, I was sort of going to psytrance festivals. I wasn't taking too many like dodgy substances at this point. Sobriety was just like enough. But I remember downloading the Bhagavad Gita, and I remember trying to listen to it, and I just fall asleep every time. And I remember when, like a few years back, when I was like, I don't know, 11, maybe 13, I remember seeing a Sri Upanishad in a friend's bedroom. We were just sort of passing through, and I remember seeing the Sri Upanishad. And then I think if I go way back when, my mum, quite a hippie in her day, used to make all sorts of things, make her own clothes, shoes, etc., and sort of like market life. And they would have this Grahamstown festival, which is where I was actually born, in South Africa, and they would have the Hare Krishnas gathered there. So I think I was sort of exposed at that point. But this brings us to possibly the next question, which is how I like came to Krishna consciousness. But these are like the seeds, you know, the seeds sort of happened in South Africa, and then it kind of blossomed in the UK. But right now, I've just finished my dissertation in global media and communication at Sussex University, and I have nobody but Krishna to thank for that. Yeah,
I'm pleased to hear that.
Gurudev, and
just a question. So do you speak French?
Yes, yeah.
Fluently.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, I've actually just come back from France. I love France.
Okay.
I don't speak French. I just went last week, I think, or the week before, just for 3 days, and I found a spot. Coquel.
Okay.
Coquel is a small village on the north coast, which I've been to before, and I love it. It's a great kind of retreat. For me, it's a great retreat place because nobody knows who I am, and I can go there. And I'm going to a foreign country, but it's very close to the UK. And I go there for a bit of kind of me time, which we don't do enough of. So and I find the vegan restaurant thing. So you managed a vegan restaurant in South Africa.
Yeah, that's right. I had always been, I think I first went like vegetarian when I was maybe like 12, 13. And then I kind of went through phases, and I'd just go into my friend's house and be like, what's for dinner? And it wasn't vegetarian. I'd be like, oh God, I can't be bothered to go through this whole malarkey of, I don't eat meat and this, that, and the next thing. So I kind of like oscillated between different diets. But at that point, I was a staunch vegan, you know, I was a staunch vegan. And now I've sort of really settled into vegetarianism because it's sort of my balance. I'd say I'm like literally about 95% vegan. But I personally like the balance. But yeah, the vegan restaurant was lovely. It was sort of like the peak of my hospitality, you know. I had started off years and years back in France cleaning Airbnb, like not Airbnbs, but cleaning B&Bs. So then to sort of work my way into like a commis de rang, and then a chef de rang, and then like a waitress, and then a supervisor, and then a manager. And I was like, this is, it's not for me. Yeah.
So you were, I mean, obviously it's rude to ask a woman their age, but you were quite young when you were managing this vegan restaurant in South Africa.
Yeah, I think I'm 26 now. I don't really mind age. It's not a big question for me. I don't think, I hope that won't ever, I hope that will ever.
I was once told you should never ask a woman or a swami their age.
Oh really? Oh,
I mean,
interesting.
I don't think that's not in the scriptures. It's just someone having a laugh. But yeah, never ask a woman or a swami their age.
No, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I know that's also been sort of
they're ageless.
and handed down. Yeah, definitely. And I personally find that devotees in general tend to age, I mean, incredibly well. So yeah, that was sort of managing that vegan restaurant, and it was just a lot of pressure. I was working 6 days a week, and then also sort of expected to sell. They had developed like an alkaline coffee. So it was like you could have it when you were pregnant. It didn't sort of send you up the walls. It was sort of more healthy and not so acidic. And it was great, and I did very well. But it wasn't.
You know, I'd love someone to invent a coffee which has got no caffeine in it, but it gives you the same kick. And I've tried lots of alternative stuff, and it just doesn't do it.
Really? Yeah. Have you tried matcha and all of that? I've never. No, I think matcha might be close to it.
Matcham. I shall look that up.
Matcha.
Matcha.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Yeah, I think they do like matcha lattes now. And
Wow.
I think that's sort of like the green kick, but it
Okay.
kind of tastes a bit like coffee.
All
I
right.
don't know. That's what I'd recommend. Yeah.
So you're in Brighton now. You've just
Correct.
finished a degree in global media and communications,
Hmm.
which sounds really, you're super clever. Sounds like you're super clever and intelligent. I did an A level in media studies a long time ago because I'm getting quite old now, and I remember doing a whole project on Big Brother for my A level media studies, and it was really fun actually. The whole thing
Yeah.
about people being in a house together.
Hmm.
So actually, before we get onto your degree, tell us a bit about then, how you came to Krishna consciousness, and tell us kind of how you fit into the Hare Krishna family.
Yes, good sort of point of call. So when I was in South Africa and I was managing this restaurant, um, we had sort of, it was just magnificent. This person had really great ambitions, but just not the budget, and sort of wanted like a Japanese garden, which requires a lot of water in drought-stricken South Africa. So it was just sort of that sort of push power, like it was just tricky to sort of navigate. And I was so like naive and like, oh, this is, whatever. So anyway, we got some really nice people to work in the kitchen, and they were sort of my friends. And I remember that he had lived in an ISKCON temple in Cape Town for, I think it was 7 years. And if anybody tells me that they've lived in a temple for 7 years, I'm like, let me give you my ear. Like, I want to know everything. And funny enough, so they were working in the kitchen, and they were actually starting to like produce prashad and bring that in. And I remember first tasting prashad and being like, there's something about this, like there's really truly something about this that's very special. Prasadam, obviously, just for any devotees that any non-devotees, but it's like blessed food. So and it needs mercy. So anyway, I was babysitting for them one night. So he had sort of got out of the temple, and there was this lovely lady, and she had a son, and I babysat for them. And I just remember sort of they came back later that evening, and I was asking him like, listen, this Big Bang Theory just does not work for me. Like, it's just not making any sense. Please, can you explain to me, according to your faith, what it means? And I remember them having a little temple room, and she took me into the room and showed me a picture of Krishna. And I was like, a bit strange, a bit strange, not going to lie. But that was just luckily my thoughts. But she was like, isn't he beautiful? And that made me say, oh yeah, sure, and that's incredible Sukriti. So anyway, that was sort of my first encounter with it. And then I asked him, I was like, how did the universe come to be? And then he explained about Lord Vishnu, and how out of his belly button comes this beautiful lotus flower, and there's Lord Brahma, and then he sort of sings the universe into creation, being like being sort of instructed by Krishna, or sort of empowered. And I was like, that sounds far out, but it sounds much more realistic than some ridiculous Big Bang Theory. So I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting. But again, it was sort of a bit sort of like, they were very all in, and they were really sort of working on like grihastra life, and just sort of two young people trying to make their way. And he was sort of initiating her into Krishna consciousness. And I remember sort of flipping through some magazines. So that was that. That sort of put that to sleep. As I said, I tried to listen to the Bhagavad Gita, kept falling asleep. And then came to England. And I'll be quite honest with you, right? Because I think this is important. You did touch on mental health just before we started speaking. And I'm quite open about this because I need people to understand how difficult life can be, and how it can also outwardly not look like life is so difficult, but inwardly people can be struggling. Throughout my life, people have looked at me and thought, oh, you look so blissful, you look so peaceful, you look so zen. Meanwhile, I could be like, battling demons inside. So anyway, came to England, was in a bit of a difficult situation because I have had sort of like struggle taking care of myself, and sort of being responsible, because it was my choice to work so young. So it's like I kind of felt that I robbed myself of my childhood and all these things. And it's just been difficult because I've been separated from my family as well. They're all in South Africa. So it's just my mum and myself here. So anyway, came to England, was in a bit of a difficult situation. We were staying with a friend of my mum's, and I wasn't really sort of too welcome. And I got very, like, the most suicidal that I'd ever got. And in order for me to carry out my suicide plan, I needed money. I had the most perfect suicide plan planned. It was going to happen. So anyway, great solution. I went to Hastings to like apply for, I don't know, I was doing like admin courses that I could just gently get out of hospitality. And I sat down and I still want to take this woman roses or flowers or something. Because I sat her down and I was like, these are my A levels, this is what I've got. And she's like, you should go to university. And I was like, what? Me? University? Seriously? Because I was part of the not going to uni clan. I was like, I don't want to conform. This is dumb, like at 18. And it was actually great that I didn't, because I would have probably fluffed it up. I'm very happy to be and to have had been a mature student. So yeah, part of my suicide plan was to get money, go to university and carry it out. So anyway, I arrived at university. I did like, I was like, okay, let me just give it like 2 weeks. Let me just give it another 2 weeks, a month, let me see how things are going. And then I actually really started to like university. And then I sort of got my first assignments back and they really like big up university. They're like, oh, big scary university, like la 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 la. And when I actually got my marks back, I was like, wow, I can actually really do well. To be honest, the competition's pretty low. Like, it was surprising. And also just like the freedom of studying media. Like, as you were saying, like people might laugh at you studying Big Brother, but there is so much to unpick. There is so much critical analysis that can be done and like so many different dimensions to unpick and academically sort of analyze. So that sort of got me hooked on media. And then essentially I was just like, maybe I don't have to commit suicide anymore. And then it was amazing, right? So I still have this Bible, but I was a bit of a Rastafarian. So this is like, okay, so spiritually, I got into, so my grandmother used to take me to Catholic church. My mother wanted me to wait until I was old enough to be baptized. And I'm going to be wrapping up relatively soon. And then I got into sort of like Buddhism, spiritualism. And then I did one of those 10-day Vipassana courses, which was very challenging. Then after that, I was like, that's too austere, can't do that. And then I was sort of dabbling in Rastafarianism. I even got dreadlocks. I was like, I love the family values and just the like love centeredness of it. So anyway, I was trying to read the King James Bible, getting absolutely nowhere with it. And what happened? Yeah, so I was reading it one night, and then the next morning I went for a walk quite early, and I met Nitai. I don't know if you know Nitai. He's actually my god brother. Yeah, he's my god brother, and he's in London. African body devotee and really lovely, very, very sweet devotee. And he was handing out like pamphlets to the Krishna Conscious Society. So I was like, okay, cool, let me go. And that's the thing. So from Tarun Krishna, which you might also know, I think he's also, my god brother, he gave me a Bhagavad Gita. It was either for free, because I don't think I like carried cash. And I was like, give me the book, damn it, And I think he was either kind enough to give it to me, or somebody paid for me, I don't know, £1 or something. So anyway, I put down the Bible and picked up the Bhagavad Gita. And then the next day I ran into Nita. I got invited to the Krishna Conscious Society. That was awesome.
This is the Krishna Conscious Society University.
At Sussex University,
Sussex
correct.
University.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that was run by, I think it was sort of like a core team of Madhuvrat and Sarveshri. And then Tarun Krishna was sort of very involved in it. And he sort of tried to sort of maintain it, but because I work a lot, basically I work, at least part-time, it's not really an option for me to sort of to have like, to keep going with it. But it was really valuable to me, and I think if Krishna wills it, it will keep going. And who knows, I might sort of be able to do more in the future. But just sort of living with students, it's not easy for me to cook for devotees in my kitchen. Like, it's okay for me, Nita and Gauranga are super merciful, but I wouldn't feel comfortable like going in there and cooking a lot of food for people. So anyway, that was a little divulgence. But I went to this Krishna Conscious Society, and we just sat in a circle, and the conversation flowed, And of course, Mudge is very wise, and Joy and Krishna was really lovely, and there was beautiful food. And I was like, wow, this is awesome, this is really lovely. But I've heard, a couple of things that it's a bit culty and la 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 la. So I think it was actually at that first meeting, but they mentioned that there was a free festival. Okay, being a student, word free, I was sold already. There was a free festival to celebrate the disappearance day of Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj. So I, of course, had no idea who he was, but as I said, they had me at free. So I went to this festival in Kent, and I remember sort of arriving on the first day, it was a nice sort of like family home, and there were lots of devotees and all these ladies in long skirts and men wearing, funny hairdos and all that jazz, and everyone was saying Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. And on the first day, I was like, oh my god, this is definitely a cult. What have I got myself into, kind of thing. And literally the second day, I was like, Hari Bol. So I kind of like, it got through eventually, but it's like every single conversation that I had with every single person there was just so enlightening, made so much sense. And I just remember sort of, I don't know if you know Balabhadra Das, but he was sort of around, and I remember talking to him and saying, oh, it's great, you could just chant in the back of your head all the time. Obviously, I had no idea the challenges of chanting that would come. But that was that. And that's where I met Shamarani Didi. And at the time, I had no idea what an incredible devotee I was meeting. But I think that was almost good in a way, because it's like, she was so much closer to me. She was just a very approachable nun, if I can sort of, what I sort of related her to, And since then, I've got her book, which I'm sort of slowly making my way through. And she was actually the person that she was the devotee that gave me my spiritual name. So that's that. You can ask more questions.
And just and just in terms of context, if anyone, you mentioned the name Shamarani Didi, so Shamarani Didi also to others is known as Jadharani.
That's correct.
And I believe that she's well known for many things, but she's probably in the Western world the longest serving female member of the Hare Krishna movement in the Western world, which is quite an accolade. I picked that up from somewhere about 6 months ago. So she met Srila Prabhupada in 1966 in New York.
Wow. That's so a year after he arrived.
56 years ago. And I think, I don't know how old she is now, but she was about 16 at the time, 16, 17, and now she's a bit older. So yeah, she's been around the Hare Krishna for a long time, and she's certainly very well respected and well regarded. And she's still, at her advanced age, is very youthful, isn't she?
Absolutely.
So I haven't had the opportunity to meet Shamarani Didi yet, but hopefully one day I will.
Of course, no, definitely. I would, I'd even make an effort. Like, I'd love to, when I've saved up some money, just go to Miami, and sort of, I think she's actually set up a whole sort of temple in that area. Anyway, I'm not too great with American geography, but yeah. So she is an incredible woman, and she's so humble. You won't believe it. So humble, so delicate, yet obviously very, very strong and sort of well-centered, and focused. But I remember, because I actually got to spend a lot of time with her, considering. So she gave me a garland, for example. I've still got that garland. It's very dried up right now, but I've still got the garland. So after the festival, I was kind of like, oh no, I don't know I've just found my people, I don't want to go back to Brighton. So I kind of hung around London as much as I could, because I was on sort of December holiday, and we actually went out on Harinam on New Year's Eve. So that was sort of a very different experience for me, because I often sort of wonder, how do you celebrate New Year's Eve without getting trashed or smashed or doing something like that? It's
without alcohol.
And
sense gratification.
Exactly. Like, to this day, when birthdays come, I'm like, how do I do this? So
Shamarani gave you the name Apurva Dasi. She gave you your You've also got beads. You've been given beads as well. Tell us a bit about some of the kind of inspirational people you've met in the Krishna consciousness kind of family.
Yes, of course. So yeah, that was at the festival in Kent. That she was sort of, I was just so keen. I was like, give me initiation. I want it. I was like chanting one more round every single day. So I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is good. This is it. I'm off. This is it. Love it. Right. Anyway, I'm still here, 3 years on. So anyway,
It's
but
great.
yeah,
It's
so
very encouraging.
yeah, that's good. So I think I asked her for like initiation, and she was like, okay, sure, I'll give you Harinam initiation. She did chant on beads for me and gave me those beads. I personally didn't connect with them very well. I'm quite a tactile person, and they were quite rough beads from sort of India, sort of very sort of like homemade. And I didn't connect with them quite well. And I'll be very honest in saying that. I think the name that was given to me was very beautiful, and I'm very grateful for it. I think it was great because my birth name, my Kami name is Ava Jane. So it's Apurva Dasi. And the way that she explained it to me was, I think it's a quality of Srimati Radhika, but it's like unparalleled, never to be seen before, never to be seen again, like very unique. And then, so she chanted on the beads, gave me the beads, and then only later did I realize how valuable those beads were, because I ended up giving them to this like really sweet girl that came to stay with me in Brighton, because I thought she really needed them for protection, because she was like living in a forest. She was, forest fairy. And so I gave her the beads to sort of protect her, and then I think she sort of misplaced them, but hopefully they're somewhere in London. I truly have no idea where they are, but I trust that, it wasn't meant to be. But yeah, I was in contact with Shamarani Dodiya for quite a while, sort of on WhatsApp, but she's such a popular spirit, and such so many people want a tiny piece of her, that I think we've just sort of fallen out of contact. But for Santi Didi, who's sort of her sidekick, they really travel all over the place. She's amazing, and she sort of does quite a bit of work on Instagram. Yeah, so that's that.
I mean, she's special for many reasons, but I think one of the reasons she's so special is because unfortunately there are still so few female leaders, in the Hare Krishna movement worldwide, and so Shamarani certainly has a special role to play in being a woman, in the sense that I saw something in terms of kind of the COVID pandemic in different countries, and how countries were dealing with the pandemic, and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting. Someone had written an article for a newspaper. They pointed out that 5 of the countries, or the 5 countries that were dealing with it the best, were run by women. They had female leaders or female prime ministers or whatever. And there aren't many countries worldwide that have female leaders, but so it's great. And I'm all in favor of women having positions of authority in all walks of life, political, spiritual, business. I think it's great to have a balance. Men have ran the world for far too long, and look at the mess it's in.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So just a random point, but it's a lovely conversation. It's what I've learned in French, because I did global media and communications with French for professional purposes. So it's kind of upgraded my French from, I know it's a mouthful. If I don't get a top job, I will have words.
If you're not earning 100 grand a year by Christmas, something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, no. Money back, please. But anyway, so French, what it's actually taught me is how the French language has become so masculine. So for example, there's the word un docteur, a doctor. Now there is the word une doctresse, but it's been phased out over the last sort of 100 to 150 years. So we only use the masculine form. So it's just interesting to know that, it's really, has it been like an intentional kind of masculinization, patriarchy, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's
So can we talk a bit about your degree, global media and communications, and particularly I want to talk about your dissertation, because when we bumped into each other 2 months ago in Kent, of all places, for a kirtan event, we were talking about this, and it was particularly the topic of your dissertation that made me want to invite you onto this podcast to talk about it. So tell us a bit about your dissertation and what it has involved. What's
Just,
included?
I will definitely do that. I just forgot my point about Shamarani Dodiya, who's Shamarani
Sure,
Dodiya. Okay, when I
sure.
met her in the temple, I kind of like, I was new to the whole like bowing down thing, right? So I bowed down to her, and she literally got out of her desk chair and bowed down on the floor to me. Like, that's the level of humility, and it's just, she's such a sweet, gentle lady. So anyway, I just had to share that little thing. It was really, really touching to me. So anyway, right, my degree. So in order for me to complete this degree, I had no choice but to make my dissertation Krishna Consciousness, because I was dragging my feet through the academia, and just it wasn't easy to study during COVID. I'll just be honest, it was not easy to live during COVID, let alone study and sort of, make a life. So the degree title is Global Media and Communications. Now, as you know, media is a vast, multidisciplinary subject that is incredible. And I think I've read a lot of academic articles about how it's purposefully poo-pooed as something that's silly people or like not so clever people study. And that's certainly what I experienced in college. That's what I studied, like languages and business and economics for my A levels, but I kind of wish that I had done media, even though they do study some disturbing things. Anyway, divulging. So my degree title, yeah, so that's what I'm studying. And for my dissertation, I did to what extent do the Gaudiya Vaishnav community, known as the Hare Krishnas, utilize social media to build community?
Wow. So in other words,
Yes,
how is the Hare Krishna movement or the practitioners of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, how are they using social media to grow their community?
correct, exactly. Do they use it to have a community, maintain a community? What is community? That sort of thing. So that was sort of the question that I set out to do. I wanted to originally study a Muslim community, like a local Muslim community, and Gaudiya Vaishnav. Now that wasn't to sort of do like comparisons between them, but it's just, I'm just fascinated by like religion. So like, I'm just absolutely fascinated by it. So in the process of doing it, it sort of proved a little bit inaccessible, and I was running out of time. So I just studied the one group, which was great because I was part of the group. So accessibility was very simple. But yeah, I magically pulled together a dissertation. And it was really interesting as well, because I sort of recruited people just by putting something on the WhatsApp group in Brighton. And then what we did was qualitative interviews. So I recorded a sort of between 35 and 40 minutes of speech, and sort of us just like conversing. And a lot of it was similar to this conversation. How did you come to Krishna consciousness? What are your daily activities? How do they incorporate technology? And it's just incredible. Even my supervisor was really taken aback by how full the interviews were. He was quite concerned that they might have nothing to say, or they might say, oh, technology, ban it, shun technology. And it wasn't actually at all like that. We got some really interesting results. So yeah, open to questions.
Wow.
But yeah, it was
Wow.
really fun. It was I kind of, when I eventually did sit down at my laptop to write the dissertation, I was like, I actually love this, this is great. So
So did
yeah.
you look at different examples and different profiles and different ways that different Hare Krishna temples and sanghas and mats are using Facebook and Instagram and Twitter to reach out to people?
So that would be a master's level. That would be the next level of study,
Okay,
because I only touched on that. Literally, it's sort of 8,000 words. That's like the word limit, which is not much. It's really not
so
much.
much at
I
all.
got to about 6,000, and I said to my supervisor, I was like, I'm just getting started, buddy. I don't know how this is
Yeah.
going to
Can I
work.
increase the font to font size 18 so it stretches a bit further?
And he was like, just put the interview in the appendix, and just,
Just
I
have a
don't know,
long
we've got
bibliography.
like a 10% here or there. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll do my best. So yeah, it was sort of, it was like a whistle stop tour. But the way that I wanted to do it was not to approach institutions or temples or things like that. I wanted to know on an everyday, day-to-day basis how individuals use technology to connect to their local community, their international community, and in what way. So So how it sort of manifested, which is quite interesting, is I just put a sort of a thing on the group saying I'm looking for volunteers, and then Sarveshri and Madhu were the first ones to volunteer. And then because I'm going to mention a load of devotees right now, because I go to two very special devotees on Sunday. They have sort of a house program. They also offered, and then to Lokanath Das Prabhu and Kundalata Devi Dasi. They have sort of rekindled with the Hare Krishna Brighton group, so they've started coming on Fridays because they live quite close to Brighton, but I think they just sort of fell away for a little bit, and now they've come back because COVID really made them want to associate with devotees. So they volunteered, Madan Mohan and Mohini, and they've all said that they'll give consent for me to share their names. So Madan Mohan and Mohini Devi Dasi also volunteered.
So I know.
So I ended up with three couples. Yeah, I ended up with three couples, and yeah, I'm sure you know them exactly. Thank you.
And I just want to make the point. But one thing, I know that your thing wasn't based on institution or anything like that, but I love the fact that there's representatives from 3 different mats in all those names, and I love that. You know, you didn't focus on one particular whatever. You just, I mean, Brighton's quite eclectic anyway, so I just loved what you've done as a
oh, bless you,
feedback.
thank you, that means so much. Oh my gosh. That means a lot, thank you, that's very sweet, very sweet. Yeah, it's all sort of been Guru and Gauranga guided, but yeah, it was really fun, and I feel like it's something that I'd like to do more of.
So tell us a bit about some of the things that you discovered. I mean, you know, you don't have to tell us everything in those 8,000 words, but what's any 2 or 3 interesting things that came out of your research?
Yeah, I'd say sort of the most important is that technology is not essential for spiritual life. That is, it was pretty much deemed a fact. You know, it's not. It's like it was sort of compared to very, very cleverly trying to learn the piano, sort of watching YouTube videos. Unless you have a piano in front of you and you are practicing, you're never going to learn how to play piano. I mean, maybe, but the chances are very slim. So in the same way, it's only by the mercy of Krishna and our progressive efforts at chanting and devotional life that we can progress in spiritual life. So that was sort of the resounding thing. However, on the other hand, it's also inevitable. One of my sort of topics of interest was, I think I did like online versus offline. I think I did times of crisis, and I think I did like religious authority and integrity and value. Like, does it lose value being online? So technology can definitely help, but it's not essential. And that's right. So the other thing was sort of the future. So like virtual reality, would going on a parikram, like would going on a pilgrimage in India, would that benefit one in the same way as having VR goggles on and having some spray sprayed at you so that you can kind of get a bit of the incense and the vibe, you know, take off your shoes and go trot around on the tar outside? Is that really the same, you know? And it was very a resounding sort of voice that it wasn't the same, and it's impossible to transmit the mood. And it's possible, but it's very challenging to transmit the mood via sort of technology, and a lot is lost also when you have sort of Facebook and it's mixed up with people's cats and videos, and it's just overwhelming. It can be an avalanche of information that can sort of leave one feeling overwhelmed. There's also disinformation. So there's a lot of the things that kind of come up in online world anyway, but kind of replicate themselves in devotees and Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and how they utilize the
yeah, I did see, certainly during the pandemic, which is still going on to some extent, that one of the mats was organizing kind of virtual parikrams around kind of, you know, different holy sites around, you know, Braj, Vrindavan and Mathura, and I just really had no desire to tune in. I just think if it's not the real thing, I could just go on YouTube on my own and look at things, pictures.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's like the sort of the Zoom overload that everybody felt, because for like I think for you, perhaps for like your profession, you were doing everything on Zoom. With me with
Yeah.
studying, I was doing everything on Zoom. So the moment we had book studies or more Zoom stuff, it was just like I just can't stare at a screen any longer.
I mean, like,
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I agree. I agree.
Mm.
Okay. I was very so. I'll come back to that a bit later on. I want to comment on something else, but we've got a bit of time left. Let's chat a bit about kind of the future. What's the future plans for you? You know, you've just handed in your dissertation. You're feeling very refreshed. You've told me you've just been to the gym. So
Yep.
physically you're feeling great as well as spiritually. So what are the plans now for the future?
Well, essentially, I've kind of asked my Guru Maharaj, but he sort of guides you in mysterious ways. You know, he's not going to send me an email and say, "Go do this." You know, he kind of guides you in spiritual matters.
So choose a man
So,
for you to marry. I'm joking.
yeah, exactly. It's a little bit like, oh, I've actually got to make some decisions now. But I tell you what, my dream is. My dream is to sort of purchase a van or a vehicle that I can have like a little sleeping spot, a little stove, and be quite independent. And then go around just in the UK instead, you know, in case another COVID happens or whatever, just in the UK, to sort of go around to all of the Hare Krishna communities and be very open about who I am and what I sort of like to do, like in exchange for accommodation, just somewhere to park my car really, or my van, and be able to serve and just be able to find out what beautiful little communities there are in the UK. And I'll sort of have your book as quite a roadmap really, because I think like whatever I lacked during my dissertation, I think you could really fill in so many interesting gaps in like the sort of history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and the sort of ins and outs and intricacies of it. So that's sort of my dream. And I do sort of have the year in Hong Kong, but depending on how things go with COVID, I might need to see if I can do a year somewhere else.
So
Because
just so I understand, and the viewers and listeners understand, your degree, you've done 2 years of the degree, have you?
3 years.
3 years, and now
So
you need to go and spend a fourth year in a different country.
that's right. So they're going to give me a certificate anyway. I think they have to meet their quotas, whatever it's institutions. So they have to meet their quotas. So they're going to give me media and communications with French for professional purposes. Now, the degree that I applied for and the degree that I want and paid for was global media and communications. So I will get that degree no matter how long it takes. But yeah, so I'm taking a year out on sort of medical grounds. I sort of, got like a blind eye injury that needs a little bit of taking care of. And yeah, I just need just some time away from studying, just save up some money, restabilize myself, get out of my overdraft, all sorts of things like that.
One of kind of similar to what you're saying, but not the same. I was doing a very high powered job, a lot of responsibility, and I left that in 2015. And I was a bit of a workaholic. I'm still a bit of a workaholic now, but I was a very much workaholic. And I wouldn't say I had a breakdown, but I came close to it. I was 30 at the time. And I just decided, I just said to Krishna, I just need time out of life. I need to be in a position where I can, for a whole year, not need to earn a lot of money and just go traveling and do lots of Hare Krishna stuff. And it happened literally for a whole year. I just traveled around Europe.
Yeah.
With friends, devotees and non-devotees, and it was wonderful. I visited probably 10 countries over the next year, and luckily I've got a brother that lives in a popular foreign country, so I can sleep on his sofa for free.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I love to drive, so I love going to France as well. It's just kind of down the road, isn't it, or over the water. I love going to France as much as possible. So before we go, the thing I just really want to touch on is I didn't know much about your personal story before we broadcast this episode, and I was quite touched actually when you talk about some of those thoughts around mental health and suicide. Of course, I don't know everything about every guest that comes on, and I was really quite touched by that. I know a number of people that have you know, had some real challenges with their mental health, and I've never personally been in that position where I felt the need to end my life. And I just find it so, firstly, really sad, and you know, that people have gone through that. And I'm really pleased that you're still here. I just want to say that I'm really pleased you're still here. I tell you. Because you know, life is actually really good. I mean, that sounds, life can be really good. I think often with the fanatics or the evangelicals in the Hare Krishna movement, they make it out that the material world is so miserable. We should try, but it is miserable. Yeah, it's a miserable element to it, and we're suffering. You know, I mean, I got up this morning, I was still tired, that kind of thing. You know, but really, you know, life, there's so many positive opportunities in life. You know, this is from a theological or a philosophical point of view, how we look at it as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is that we've taken many lifetimes to get to this point as human beings. So make the most of it. You know, make the most of, spreading Krishna consciousness, traveling, meeting people, also trying to have a good time. There's no point having a miserable life, is there? Who wants a miserable life?
I personally, I have to agree with you. I do find that I've been in Krishna consciousness quite solidly for about 3 years, and I personally was exposed to so many different devotees, really truly so many different devotees, and the ones that I have really chosen and consciously upheld association with are the ones that see the cup as half, like, you know, half full, that see Krishna consciousness in everything. And that's personally what I see. And it's like, you've got to be careful about what you say, you know what I mean? But it's like, not a branch, a leaf in the tree moves without Krishna's consent. So I remember saying to a devotee, you know, if I was meant to be a nun, I would have been a nun. Krishna would have arranged for me to be a nun. Like, it's not in my nature to be that, like, it's just not in my nature. So I feel like, you know, it's my path is different, because I mean, sure, had I gone to live at an ashram at like 17, it would have been a completely different story. But I'm really grateful for the lessons that I've learned, because to come out of that really negative headspace, and it's almost like something takes over you. It's like when you're out of it, you're like, God, it's so foreign to actually want to kill myself. How could I do that? Because firstly, you don't belong to yourself, you're Krishna's. So I personally, for my own mental health, for my own longevity in Krishna consciousness, have chosen devotees that fill me with the joy of being in Krishna consciousness, because I believe that it is something that chant and be happy. You know, it takes a while, but Srila Prabhupada definitely, you know, stuck to his word that it does work. Just got to keep coming back. It's like those AA meetings, keep coming back. Works if you work it.
You got to keep at it.
It's like balancing that sort of, like, you don't want to be too apathetic, you know what I mean? But you also don't want to turn yourself off it because you're trying so hard. You want it to be somewhat spontaneous and joyous.
Well, I think Apurva, your story is fascinating, and it's been great. Personally, it's been great to meet you. We met a couple of years ago. It's great to have you as the guest on this week's podcast, the Hare Krishnas in Britain, and I'm super pleased that you bought my book. Or did I send it to you? I sent you a copy. I can't remember.
I think you might have possibly sent it to me, because I always play the student card.
And also because I interviewed you. I'm sure that your name's in the back. I've met so many hundreds of devotees over the last decade. I keep forgetting who I have and haven't met. But all those devotees you've mentioned, I know them all personally. They're all great devotees, and they're great devotees to be associating with. I've spent time with all of them, eating, taking prasadam.
That was a blessing. Literally, the first meeting, I had these beautiful, like, gorgeous sort of spicy tea and homemade baked goods. I'm sure you could probably guess who I was there. And then the second one, I had a delicious homemade khichdi. And then the third one, which is sort of the elder couple that had 90 years in devotional life between the two of them. I mean, just absolutely incredible.
I know who they are, and I've been to their house. It's amazing.
And it was Adasi. Amazing deities, right? They're like really large.
They've both been around the Hare Krishna movement for like 45 years each, and I have a lot of respect for them both. A lot of time. They were also interviewed my book. Their names
Oh,
are in there.
wow.
Yeah.
I haven't read all of it. I've got about
Don't worry.
10 books on the go.
I've got a whole book list, a book pile actually of things I need to read.
Wow.
So we're going to say goodbye to the viewers at home, the listeners at home. Apurva, it's been fantastic to have you on the podcast this week. Guest number 36.
I like that number.
Yeah, but it's nowhere near to your age. 36 is a good 36 is a good age, actually. I passed
honestly
it.
With every year life just gets better and better. I would not go back for anything. So hopefully at 36 I'll still be going strong, Krishna willing.
So thank you everyone for tuning in to this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do like it. Please do put a positive comment. And if you're watching this on Facebook, please do put a positive comment. Share it with your friends and family and groups and pages. And also you can like, love, or care for it. One of the emojis, emotions that you can use to express your support for Apurva on this week's edition. So until next time, we'll see you all soon. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.